So I just finished my second year medicine exam at Cambridge. Is this course really as hard as people think? What sort of stuff do they teach us? Well, I'm going to show you what I did in first year and give you a little glimpse into my uni experience. Let's go back to the start. Term 1, or as we say in Cambridge, Michaelmas term. Around half of our teaching was online, so around half of our supervisions, all of our lectures, and not many of our practicals. But the rest of them were in person, which was kind of good and bad at the same time. The good part was that I could watch lectures on 2 times speed, meaning that I could condense a 1 hour lecture into 30 minutes. The bad part was that I could watch lectures on 2 times speed, meaning that I wouldn't retain as much and I'd get very complacent, thinking that I could catch up on everything very quickly, when in reality it just meant that I'd end up with a huge backlog of lectures. We have 5 modules which you study across the year in first year. We have Cambridge Speak for them and Scientific Speak for them. Cambridge Speak is Fab, Mims, Hom, Setchi and FebP, whilst Scientific Speak for them is Anatomy, Biochemistry, Physiology, Sociology / Ethics, and Medical Stats. In Fab or Anatomy, we learn about the anatomy of the body. So that's all the bones, all the muscles, all the arteries, all the veins, all the nerves. If you can see it, we basically learn about it. In first term in particular, we learn about the upper limb and the thorax. So that's the arm and the chest. In Hom or Physiology, we learn about the basic ways in which the body functions. So we kind of take the gross anatomy and look into it a bit deeper. So that starts to involve things like signaling cascades and receptors. In MIMS or biochem, we look at the biochemistry of the body. So that's looking at stuff like genes, DNA, proteins, and in particular in first term, we learn about it in the context of diabetes. So that's learning about stuff such as insulin. And finally, we have Setchi and FebP, which is the sociology, ethics, and medical stats side, where we learn about pseudoscience and how to spot it, and more about the ethics of medicine. I think if I were to give myself some advice in first term, it'd be definitely to go out and see more events and see more societies and things like that. I think in first term I spent a lot of time inside kind of just studying because there was just so much stuff to do. And I didn't realise that you don't have to learn everything, but you have to cover everything and learn it all as you go along. First year was a lot of fun, and to help others get into Cambridge, me and my friend Faraz made a BMAT course on sigmamed.co.uk. It covers everything you need fairly comprehensively, including the strategies that we use to get top marks in the BMAT, content for section 2, and essay examples for section 3. We found some of the third-party resources were lacking, and the assumed knowledge guide can sometimes be a bit much to trawl through. Hence why we made the course to kind of condense everything down and get all the high yield stuff all in one place. Term 2, or as we like to call it in Cambridge, Lent term. In Anatomy or Fab, we moved on to the abdomen and lower leg, so that's the stomach area and the legs. That included pelvic anatomy, which I can safely say is not my favourite. It's complicated and sort of disgusting, I can't lie. In Physiology or Hom, we moved on to different systems, so that's the GI system, the respiratory system, and the renal system. And we started to kind of move away from the basic cascades that we sort of looked at in first term. In biochemistry, we moved away from diabetes and moved on to everyone's favourite subject, cancer. And so unsurprisingly, we learned all about DNA, RNA, proteins, and how our cells store information. And finally, for Setchi and FebP, we learned more about the sociology and ethics of medicine, and more about how to spot pseudoscience and the sort of mathematical techniques that people use when publishing papers. So for Setchi and FebP, we actually get examined during this term. So during our 8-week term, we'll get lectures every week, except for week 8. So in week 8, we get examined. So for FebP, that was a 15-mark MCQ exam, and for Setchi, it was coursework, so that was 2 essays to be handed in on the last week of term, which everyone did on the last day. Now, second term was crazy, both from an academic point of view and a social point of view. It's when my sleeping pattern went from I should be awake by 6 AM to I should be asleep by 6 AM. I think every uni student has that phase, and honestly, I was surprised at how much sleep deprivation my body could take. But I wasn't studying during that time. Instead, me and my friends were just running around Cambridge, and I feel sorry for the porters that we used to wake at 4 AM. For context, porters are basically on-site security guards which each college has to help make sure that students are both safe and well at all times. If you have any problems as a student, you normally go to your porters first. Now term 3, or as we like to say in Cambridge, Easter term. Easter is a bit of a weird one. You've got a 3-week period at the start where you've got normal lectures and normal supervisions, normal practicals. And then you've got about a week and a half break until your exams. And exams are normally about 2.5 weeks, which takes you to week 7. Now, Cambridge term is 8 weeks long, which means that you've got a week at the end, or May week, where you get to basically do what you want. Colleges normally hold May balls and other fun events. The 3 weeks at the start are there to kind of mop anything which hasn't been taught so far but is examinable. So in biochemistry you'll learn a bit more about vitamins, for example. In physiology you learn about thermoregulation, and in anatomy you don't actually have many lectures because most of it's been taught already. Now honestly, I didn't have much time to learn the stuff that we did in those 3 weeks properly, and I wish that I'd used the holidays a bit more to kind of supplement my learning and reinforce stuff that I should have maybe done during term time. Now exams are unlike any other medical school exams in that we have 2 components. We have an MCQ second MB component, and we have a tripos component. The tripos component has essays, practical papers and MCQs, whereas the second MB component only has MCQs and practical paper components. Technically you only have to pass second MB to become a doctor in the UK, that's a GMC requirement. But you need to pass tripos to go on to next year, so really you have to pass both. If you do well enough to pass your second MB, then usually you'll do well enough to pass your tripos component. Honestly, this gets really complicated and people have so many questions each year about how this actually works. All of our exams are online and differ from most medical schools in that every exam that we sit in first year is a written exam, whereas other medical schools will have OSCEs and other ways of examining people. But that's only because we only deal in preclinical sciences in the first 2 years at Cambridge, which is really different to a lot of medical schools in that they have PBL learning systems and they'll learn a lot more clinical stuff in their first year, whereas we don't. All of our exams were online and not open book, which meant that we had to take our laptops into invigilated exam halls for invigilators to look over us whilst we did our exams. It was definitely an interesting experience, but not perfect at all, as a lot of people had different technical issues. I think all in all, in general, I made the most of my first year. I made a lot of friends, I did a lot of work, and in general I came out with the result I was pleased with. I think if I were to do first year again, I'd probably try and get my sleep schedule sorted, trying to lead as healthy a life as I possibly could.